The morning alarm rang through the metal halls of Kepler Station. The sound was loud and sharp, waking up thousands of cadets from dozens of different alien worlds. But today was different. Today, the first human was coming to the Galactic Military Academy. Cadet 13 rolled out of his sleeping pod with a grunt. His long, powerful body stretched as he stood up. At 7 feet tall, he was bigger than most other cadets. His thick scales covered his entire body like armor. Right now, they were a dull green color, which meant he was calm. But that would change soon enough. The other cadets in his sleeping area moved away from him. They always did. Cadet 13 had earned his fear through years of fighting and causing trouble. His real name was too hard for most species to say, so everyone just called him by his number. He liked it that way. Numbers were simple. Numbers meant order, and Cadet 13 was very good at breaking order. He walked to the food hall, his heavy feet making loud sounds on the metal floor. Other cadets stepped aside as he passed. A group of small, bird-like aliens from the Churon system quickly moved their breakfast trays to another table when they saw him coming. This made Cadet 13 feel good. Fear was respect, and respect was power. The food hall was huge, with long tables that could seat cadets from many different worlds. Some needed special air to breathe. Others ate food that would poison most species. The Academy had learned to handle all of this over the years, but humans were new. No one knew what to expect from them. Cadet 13 sat at his usual table in the corner. He liked to watch the other cadets from there. It helped him pick out the weak ones, the ones he could push around later. He was eating his morning meal when the announcement started. "All cadets report to the main assembly hall," the voice said through the speakers. "Today we welcome our first human exchange student." Cadet 13's scales shifted to a darker green. He was interested now. He had heard stories about humans from other worlds. They were supposed to be small and weak. Their planet was far away from the main galactic routes. Most species thought they were not important, but the Galactic Council had decided to let them join the Academy program. This meant they must have something special. Cadet 13 wanted to find out what that was. More than that, he wanted to test this human. He wanted to see if they were as weak as everyone said. The assembly hall was packed with cadets. There were the tall, blue-skinned Andorians with their smooth features. The rock-like Gravari sat in special heavy chairs. The energy beings from the Nexus system floated in their containment suits, and many others from across the galaxy. Cadet 13 found a spot near the back where he could see everything. His scales were now a medium green with hints of yellow. This meant he was excited and ready for action. Commander Vex, the Academy's head officer, stepped up to the speaking platform. She was a Vraxian with 4 arms and silver skin that reflected the lights. Her voice was clear and strong. "Cadets, today marks a new chapter in our Academy's history. We welcome Lieutenant Jake Morrison, the first human to join our program." The doors at the side of the hall opened. A figure walked in, and Cadet 13 leaned forward to get a better look. The human was smaller than most species, maybe 6 feet tall. He had short brown hair and wore the standard Academy uniform. His skin was a light tan color, and his eyes were blue. But what caught everyone's attention was what he carried. In his arms was a small transport case with air holes. Through the clear front, they could see something moving inside. It was small and covered in orange and white fur. "Lieutenant Morrison brings with him his registered companion animal," Commander Vex continued. "This is part of human culture and has been approved by the Academy Board." Cadet 13's scales flickered with confusion. A companion animal? What was the point of that? Most species had left their animal companions behind long ago when they reached the stars. Only primitive worlds still kept animals around. Jake Morrison stepped up to the platform. He spoke in a clear, calm voice. "Thank you for welcoming me to the Academy. I look forward to learning with all of you, and I'd like you to meet Whiskers." He opened the transport case. Out jumped a small creature, unlike anything most of the cadets had ever seen. It had 4 legs, a long tail, and pointed ears. Its fur was bright orange, with white patches on its chest and paws. It looked around the room with bright green eyes. The creature made a soft sound. Meow, it said, dot many cadets had never heard such a sound before. Some of the smaller species moved back in their seats, but Cadet 13 just stared. The animal was tiny, probably weighing less than 10 pounds. How could something so small be worth bringing across the galaxy? Whiskers jumped onto Jake's shoulder with easy grace. The human didn't seem bothered by this at all. In fact, he smiled and gently petted the animal's head. The creature made a rumbling sound that the humans called purring. "Whiskers is a cat," Jake explained. "On Earth, cats have been human companions for thousands of years. They help us stay calm and focused. The Academy has approved him to stay with me during my training." Cadet 13 watched as the cat's head turned toward him. For just a moment, their eyes met across the crowded room. The cat's green eyes were bright and alert. There was something in that gaze that made Cadet 13 feel strange. He couldn't name the feeling, but it was new and uncomfortable. The cat looked away after a few seconds, but Cadet 13 kept staring. He had faced down warriors from a dozen different worlds. He had fought creatures twice his size. But something about this small, furry animal made him feel uneasy. After the assembly, the cadets were dismissed to their regular training. Cadet 13 stayed behind, watching as Jake Morrison packed up his cat and prepared to leave. The human moved with quiet confidence, not like someone who was afraid of being in a new place. As they walked past, Cadet 13 made his decision. He would test this human soon. He would find out what made them special, and he would prove that size and strength still mattered, no matter what strange animals they brought with them. The cat, riding on Jake's shoulder, turned its head as they passed. Once again, those green eyes met Cadet 13's gaze. And once again, the reptilian felt that strange, uncomfortable feeling deep in his chest. He shook his head and walked away. It was just a small animal. What could it possibly do to him? He would find out soon enough. 3 days had passed since the human arrived at the Academy. Cadet 13 had been watching Jake Morrison from a distance, trying to understand what made him different. The human seemed normal enough. He went to classes, ate in the food hall, and trained with the other cadets. But that small orange animal was always with him. Whiskers the cat had become famous around the Academy. Many cadets had never seen anything like him before. Some thought he was cute. Others found him strange. But all of them were curious about why humans would bring such a creature to a military school. Cadet 13 had different thoughts. He watched the cat move through the halls with smooth, quiet steps. The animal's head turned constantly, always watching everything around it. Those bright green eyes seemed to see everything and miss nothing. Today was combat training day. This was Cadet 13's favorite part of Academy life. He was bigger and stronger than most other cadets, and he enjoyed proving it. The training room was large, with soft mats on the floor and walls to prevent serious injuries during practice fights. Instructor Korth, a 4-armed Montari with thick purple skin, called the cadets to attention. "Today we will practice hand-to-hand combat," she announced. "I will pair you with opponents of different species. This will help you learn to fight enemies who are not like you." Cadet 13 smiled, his scales shifting to a brighter green. He hoped to get paired with someone challenging. Most of the other cadets were too easy to beat. They either ran away or gave up quickly when they saw his size and strength. Cadet 13, you will fight with Lieutenant Morrison. Instructor Korth said. Perfect. Cadet 13's scales flickered with yellow spots of excitement. This was exactly what he had been waiting for. He would finally get to test the human and show everyone that size and strength still mattered. Jake. Morrison nodded when he heard his name called. He didn't look worried or afraid. This surprised Cadet 13. Most opponents showed some fear when they learned they would fight him. But the human just walked calmly to the center of the training mat. What made it even stranger was that the cat came with him. Whiskers jumped down from Jake's shoulder and sat at the edge of the mat. The small animal sat perfectly still, his tail wrapped around his paws, watching everything with those bright green eyes. Humans fight with their companion animals watching? Cadet 13 asked as he stepped onto the mat. Whiskers likes to see what I'm doing, Jake replied with a slight smile. He won't interfere. He just wants to watch. Cadet 13 looked down at the cat. The animal was so small compared to him. If he wanted to, he could probably step on it by accident. But something about the way it sat there, so calm and still, made him feel uncomfortable again. Begin. Instructor Korth called out. Cadet 13 charged forward with his usual tactics. He made himself look as big and threatening as possible. His scales shifted to deep red, the color of aggression and anger. He raised his arms and opened his mouth to show his sharp teeth. This display usually made opponents freeze with fear, but Jake Morrison just moved to the side with smooth, easy motions. He didn't look scared at all. In fact, he looked like he was studying Cadet 13, learning how he moved and fought. The reptilian tried again, this time using his long arms to grab the human. But Jake was faster than he looked. He ducked under the reaching arms and stepped away. Before Cadet 13 could grab him, stand still and fight. Cadet 13 growled, his scales now flashing bright red. I am fighting, Jake said calmly. Just not the way you expected. This made Cadet 13 angry. He was used to quick victories through intimidation and brute force, but the human wasn't cooperating. Instead of being afraid, Jake seemed completely relaxed. The fight continued for several minutes. Cadet 13 charged and grabbed at the human, but Jake kept moving away from his attacks. The human never tried to strike back. He just avoided everything that came at him. Other cadets gathered around to watch. They had never seen anyone last this long against Cadet 13. Usually, his fights were over in less than a minute. But this human was different. After one particularly aggressive charge, Cadet 13 had to stop to catch his breath. Fighting for this long was unusual for him. He was used to quick victories, not extended battles. During this pause, something happened. That changed everything. Whiskers, who had been sitting quietly at the edge of the mat, stood up and stretched. His back arched, and he extended his claws briefly before relaxing again. Then he opened his small mouth and made a sound. Meow, the cat said. It was a simple sound, nothing threatening about it. But when Cadet 13 heard it, something deepened in. His brain responded. Every instinct he had suddenly screamed danger. His scales went from red to pale yellow in an instant, the color of confusion and fear. The sound triggered something primal in his reptilian mind. Somewhere in his genetic memory, his ancestors had known creatures that made similar sounds. Small predators that were deadly despite their size. Hunters that could kill prey much larger than themselves. Cadet 13 froze completely. His large body shook slightly, and he couldn't understand why. It was just a small animal making a small sound. But every part of his being told him to run away. Jake noticed the change immediately. You okay there, 13? He asked, using the shortened name that other cadets had started calling him. Cadet 13 couldn't answer. He was staring at the cat and the cat was staring back. Those green eyes seemed to look right through him. In that moment, he didn't feel like a 7-foot warrior. He felt like prey. Cadet 13 started to say, but his voice caught in his throat. He had never felt anything like this before. Fear was something he gave to others, not something he experienced himself. Whiskers tilted his head slightly, still watching the large reptilian. The cat's expression didn't change, but there was something in his eyes that seemed almost amused. Equipment malfunction, Cadet 13 finally managed to say, his voice shaking. I need to check my gear. It was a lie, and everyone knew it. Cadets didn't wear equipment during basic combat training, but Instructor Korth allowed him to step off. The mat anyway. Match goes to Lieutenant Morrison, she announced. Jake looked confused, but accepted the victory. He walked over to pick up Whiskers, who jumped easily onto his shoulder. As they passed Cadet 13, the cat's green eyes met his again. This time, Cadet 13 looked away first. For the rest of the day, he couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. He had faced down some of the toughest fighters in the galaxy. He had never backed down from a fight in his life. But a small sound from a tiny animal had made him freeze with terror. That night, he lay in his sleeping pod, staring at the ceiling. His scales were a dull gray color, showing his confusion and worry. He kept hearing that sound over and over. In his mind, meow, such a simple sound. But it had awakened something in him that he didn't understand. Something that told him the small orange creature was far more dangerous than it looked. He tried to tell himself it was just his imagination. But deep down, he knew the truth. The cat had looked at him like he was prey. And for the first time in his life, Cadet 13 felt like he might actually be in danger. The worst part was that no one else seemed to understand. To them, Whiskers was just a cute pet. But Cadet 13 knew better now. He had seen something in those green eyes that the others had missed. He was dealing with a predator, and he wasn't sure he was strong enough to face it. The weeks following the combat training incident were difficult for Cadet 13. He tried to act normal, but something had changed inside him. Every time he saw the small orange cat, he felt that same strange fear. His scales would shift to pale colors, and he would find excuses to leave the area. Other cadets started to notice his behavior. The big, scary reptilian who used to intimidate everyone was now quiet and careful. He stopped picking fights with smaller cadets. He ate his meals quickly and left the food hall as soon as possible. Whiskers seemed to be everywhere. The cat would sit in the hallways, watching cadets pass by. He would curl up in sunny spots near the windows, his green eyes half closed, but always alert. Sometimes he would follow Jake to different parts of the academy, riding on his shoulder, or walking beside him with confident steps. What bothered Cadet 13 the most was how the cat seemed to appear wherever he went. If he was in the training room, Whiskers would be there. If he was in the library, the cat would show up within minutes. It felt like the animal was following him on purpose, but that was impossible, right? Cats were just pets. They didn't plan things or think about strategy. They just ate, slept, and played with simple toys. At least, that's what Cadet 13 tried to tell himself. The breaking point came during a field exercise. Once a month, the academy would use the holographic wilderness deck for survival training. The room was huge, with computer-generated forests, mountains, and rivers. It felt almost real, and cadets had to survive in it for several days using only basic equipment. Cadet 13 had always done well in these exercises. His natural hunting instincts and physical strength made him good at finding food and shelter. This time, he was confident he could avoid the human and his cat by staying in the deep forest areas. For the first day, his plan worked. He found a good spot near a stream, built a simple shelter, and caught some of the holographic fish that swam in the water. The computer counted these as real food for the exercise. He felt relaxed for the first time in weeks. On the second day, he decided to hunt for bigger prey. The computer system had created several types of holographic animals in the forest. Catching one would give him extra points and prove he was still the skilled hunter he had always been. He spent hours tracking a large, deer-like creature through the thick trees. His scales had shifted to a mottled brown and green, helping him blend in with the forest. He moved quietly, using all the skills his species had developed over thousands of years. Finally, he found his prey in a small clearing. The animal was drinking from a stream, its head down and guard relaxed. Cadet 13 crept closer, planning his attack. He would leap from behind a large tree and grab the creature before it could run away. But as he prepared to jump, he felt something. Watching him, the feeling was strong and unmistakable. Somewhere nearby, eyes were focused on him. Cadet 13 froze, his scales automatically shifting to match the surroundings even better. Slowly, carefully, he turned his head to look around. At first, he saw nothing. The forest looked empty except for the animal at the stream. But then, about 15 feet away, he spotted a flash of orange. Whiskers was sitting perfectly still behind a fallen log. The cat's body was low to the ground, and his tail was twitching slightly. His green eyes were locked on Cadet 13 with complete focus. The reptilian's blood went cold. This was not the relaxed, sleepy cat he had seen around the academy. This was something else entirely. The cat's posture was different, more alert and ready to move. His ears were pointed forward, and his eyes were wide. But what scared Cadet 13 the most was the way the cat was looking at him. It was the same look he had seen in his own eyes when he hunted. The look of a predator studying its prey. Whiskers was hunting him. The realization hit Cadet 13 like a physical blow. All this time, he had thought the cat was just a harmless pet. But now he could see the truth. The animal had been watching him, learning his habits, figuring out how he moved and acted. The cat's eyes never left him as these thoughts raced through his mind. Those bright green eyes seemed to see everything, missing no detail. Cadet 13 felt completely exposed, like all his secrets were visible. Then Whiskers moved. It was just a small shift in position, barely noticeable. The cat adjusted his weight and crouched down a little lower. But to Cadet 13, it looked like the animal was preparing to attack. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run. His scales went completely white, the color of pure terror. He had never felt fear like this before. It was primal and overwhelming, coming from the deepest parts of his brain. He backed away from the cat, his feet moving without conscious thought. The deer-like creature at the stream heard him and ran away, but Cadet 13 didn't care about his lost prey anymore. All he could think about was getting away from those green eyes. Whiskers made no move to follow him. The cat just sat there, watching him retreat, but somehow that made it worse. The animal didn't need to chase him. It had already won. Cadet 13 stumbled backward until he hit a tree. Only then did he turn and run, crashing through the underbrush with no thought for stealth or dignity. Behind him, he heard no sounds of pursuit, but he kept running anyway. He didn't stop until he reached his shelter by the stream. There, he collapsed on the ground, his scales still pure white with fear. His whole body was shaking, and he couldn't make it stop. For hours, he sat there, jumping at every sound. Every rustling leaf might be the cat approaching. Every shadow might be hiding those green eyes. He had never felt so helpless in his life. When Jake Morrison appeared at the edge of his campsite later that evening, Cadet 13 nearly jumped out of his skin. The human looked concerned and was carrying Whiskers in his arms. "Hey, are you okay?" Jake asked. "Some of the other cadets said you came running through the forest like something was chasing you. Cadet 13 couldn't look at the cat. Even in Jake's arms, the animal seemed dangerous. Those green eyes were watching him again, and he felt that same cold fear in his chest. "I'm fine," he managed to say, though his voice was shaking. "Just had to get back to camp quickly." Jake didn't look convinced, but he didn't push the issue. "Well, if you need anything, let me know. We're all supposed to help each other out here." As the human walked away, Whiskers turned his head to look back at Cadet 13. For just a moment, their eyes met again. And in that moment, Cadet 13 saw something that made his blood freeze. The cat was pleased with himself. There was satisfaction in those green eyes, like he had accomplished exactly what he wanted to do. That night, Cadet 13 didn't sleep at all. He sat with his back against a tree, watching the darkness for any sign of orange fur. Every small sound made him jump. Every shadow looked like it might be hiding a predator dot by morning. He had made a decision. He would never let himself be alone with that cat again. He would avoid the human and his pet as much as possible. And he would never, ever underestimate the danger of that small, orange creature. The exercise ended the next day, but Cadet 13's fear did not. He had learned something important about the cat and about himself. He was not the top predator he had always thought he was. There was something on this station that was better at hunting than he was, and it had been watching him all along. After the incident in the holographic forest, Cadet 13 could not stop thinking about what had happened. The image of Whiskers crouched behind that log, watching him with those intense green eyes, played over and over in his mind. He needed to understand what he was dealing with. Late one night, when most cadets were sleeping, he made his way to the Academy's main library. The building was quiet and dimly lit, with only a few study areas still active. Cadet 13 found a computer terminal. In a corner where no one would bother him, he started by searching for information about human companion animals. The database had basic information about many species that humans kept as pets: dogs, cats, birds, fish, and many others. But most of the entries were short and didn't explain much. The entry for cats was longer than the others, but it still seemed incomplete. It said that cats were small mammals that humans kept for companionship. It mentioned that they were good at catching small pests like rats and mice. But it didn't explain why Cadet 13 felt so afraid of them. He dug deeper into the database, looking for more detailed information. In the military science section, he found files about the evolutionary history of different species. Finally, he found what he was looking for: a complete biological profile of Earth cats. What he read made his scales turn pale with fear. Cats, the file explained, were not just pets. They were descendants of apex predators that had ruled their environment for millions of years. Even though humans had domesticated them, they had kept all their hunting instincts and abilities. The report included detailed information about cat anatomy and behavior. Their muscles were designed for explosive power and speed. Their claws were sharp, enough to cut through tough materials. Their teeth were perfect for killing prey quickly and efficiently. But what frightened Cadet 13 the most were the statistics about their hunting success. The file said that cats had a success rate of over 70% when hunting prey. This was higher than most military units achieved in combat simulations. The report also explained their hunting methods. Cats were ambush predators. They would watch their prey for long periods, learning its habits and weaknesses. Then they would strike at the perfect moment, using surprise and speed to overcome opponents much larger than themselves. Cadet 13 remembered how Whiskers had been watching him around the academy. The cat had been studying him, learning how he moved and acted. Just like a predator preparing to hunt. The file continued with more disturbing information. Cats were described as obligate carnivores, which meant they had to eat meat to survive. They had evolved to kill other animals every day. It was not just something they did for food. It was built into their very nature. Even more frightening was the section about their psychological profile. Cats, the report said, often played with their prey before killing it. This was not cruelty, but practice. They were constantly improving their hunting skills, even when they were not hungry. The file included video footage of cats hunting on Earth. Cadet 13 watched in horror as the small animals moved with deadly grace. They could leap incredible distances, change direction in mid-air, and strike with lightning speed. Their movements were so smooth and efficient that they looked almost supernatural. In one video, a cat was hunting a creature about the same size as itself. The cat moved slowly and carefully, staying hidden until the perfect moment. Then it exploded into action, covering the distance to its prey in less than a second. The attack was over before the other animal could react. Cadet 13 realized that this was exactly what he had seen in the holographic forest. Whiskers had been demonstrating hunting behavior, showing him that he was being watched and studied. The cat had been telling him, in the clearest way possible, that he was potential prey. The file also explained something else that made Cadet 13's blood run cold. Cats, it said, often brought dead prey to their human companions as gifts. They did this to show their hunting skills and to demonstrate their loyalty to their pack. This meant that Whiskers was not just a pet. He was a hunter who had chosen to work with Jake Morrison. The human had not domesticated the cat. He had formed an alliance with a predator. Cadet 13 found more information about the relationship between humans and cats. Unlike other species, humans had never completely controlled their animal companions. Instead, they had formed partnerships with creatures that could have been their enemies. The report explained that this was typical of human behavior. They had evolved alongside many dangerous predators on their home planet. Instead of being afraid of them, humans had learned to work with them. They had turned potential threats into allies. This gave Cadet 13 a new understanding of human nature. Other species had conquered their worlds by eliminating or avoiding dangerous animals. But humans had done the opposite. They had surrounded themselves with predators and learned to live with them. No wonder the human had seemed so calm during their combat training. Jake Morrison had been living with a deadly predator his entire life. A 7-foot reptilian, probably. Seemed less threatening than the small orange cat that slept on his bed every night. The file contained one more piece of information that made everything clear. It explained that many alien species had evolved to recognize and fear certain predator characteristics. Sharp teeth, bright eyes, fluid movements, and specific sounds could trigger ancient survival instincts. This was why Cadet 13 felt so afraid of Whiskers. His reptilian ancestors had faced similar predators millions of years ago. The fear was built into his genetic code, programmed into the deepest parts of his brain. When the cat had made that simple meow sound during combat training, it had triggered every warning system in Cadet 13's mind. His body had recognized the sound of a predator and had reacted accordingly. The logical part of his mind knew that Whiskers was small and probably not actually dangerous to him. But the primitive part of his brain, the part that had kept his ancestors alive for millions of years, was screaming at him to run away. Cadet 13 sat back in his chair, his scales a mixture of pale yellow and gray. Now he understood what he was dealing with. Whiskers was not just a pet or a companion animal. He was a perfect predator who had chosen to work with humans instead of against them. The cat's behavior around the academy made sense now. He was not following Cadet 13 because he was curious or playful. He was doing what predators do, identifying potential prey and learning their weaknesses. Every time those green eyes had met his, Whiskers had been evaluating him. A cat had been deciding whether or not he was worth hunting. And apparently, he had decided that Cadet 13 was interesting. Enough to keep watching. This realization filled the reptilian with a new kind of fear. He was not just afraid of the cat's physical abilities. He was afraid of its intelligence. Whiskers was smart enough to understand that he was being feared and avoided. And he seemed to enjoy it. The cat was not just a predator. He was a predator who understood psychological warfare. Cadet 13 closed the computer files and sat in the quiet library, thinking about what he had learned. He now understood why humans were being invited to join the Galactic Council. Any species that could form alliances with such perfect predators was not to be underestimated. But understanding the situation did not make it less frightening. If anything, it made it worse. Now he knew for certain that his fear was justified. Whiskers was everything his instincts had warned him about, and more. He would have to be more careful than ever. The cat knew that he was afraid, and predators always focused on the weakest prey. Cadet 13 would have to find a way to avoid becoming the target of a creature that had been designed by millions of years of evolution to be the perfect hunter. As he walked back to his sleeping quarters, he felt eyes watching him from the shadows. He never saw the cat, but he knew it was there. Whiskers was still studying him, still learning his habits. The hunt was not over. In many ways, it was just beginning. The change in Cadet 13 became impossible to ignore. The once feared troublemaker now moved through the academy halls like a different person. His scales rarely showed the bright, aggressive colors they used to display. Instead, they stayed in neutral greens and browns, the colors of someone trying not to be noticed. Other cadets began to talk about it in whispers. The big reptilian who used to intimidate everyone now seemed to shrink away from confrontation. He no longer picked fights with smaller cadets. He ate his meals quickly and quietly. Most strange of all, he seemed to avoid certain areas of the academy completely. Instructor Korth noticed the change during combat training. Cadet 13 was still strong and skilled, but he had lost his aggressive edge. He fought defensively now, more concerned with protecting himself than defeating his opponents. "What happened to you?" she asked him after one particularly cautious performance. Cadet 13 looked around the training room nervously. His scales shifted to pale yellow when he saw Jake Morrison practicing with another cadet across the room. Whiskers was sitting nearby, watching the activity with his usual calm attention. "Nothing, instructor," Cadet 13 replied, but his voice was quieter than it used to be. "I am just trying to be more careful." Instructor Korth followed his gaze and saw the human and his cat. She had heard rumors about Cadet 13's strange behavior around the Earth animals, but she had not believed them. Now she was beginning to wonder if there was truth to the stories. The breaking point came during a psychology evaluation. All cadets had to undergo regular mental health assessments to make sure they were handling the stress of academy life. Cadet 13 had always passed these easily before, but this time was different. Dr. Nexus, the academy's chief psychologist, was a tall, thin being with large black eyes and smooth gray skin. She had experience with dozens of different species and their psychological patterns, but she had never seen anything quite like what she was observing in Cadet 13. "Your stress levels are unusually high," she noted, looking at the readings from the monitoring equipment. "Your brain activity suggests you are in a constant state of alert. This is not healthy for extended periods." Cadet 13 sat uncomfortably in the evaluation chair. His scales were a dull gray color, showing his stress and confusion. He knew he could not hide his condition much longer. "I am fine, doctor," he said, but even he could hear how unconvincing his voice sounded. Dr. Nexus adjusted her equipment and studied the readings more carefully. "These patterns suggest you are experiencing chronic fear responses. Something is triggering your survival instincts on a regular basis." "What is causing this?" Cadet 13 remained silent for a long moment. He had never talked about his fear with anyone. How could he explain that he was terrified of a small animal that most people found harmless and cute? "There is a creature here," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "It watches me. It hunts me." Dr. Nexus leaned forward with interest. "A creature? What kind of creature?" "The human's companion animal, the small orange one called Whiskers." The psychologist's large black eyes blinked slowly. She had heard about the human's cat, but she had never considered it might be causing psychological problems for other cadets. "You are afraid of Lieutenant Morrison's cat?" she asked, trying to understand. "You do not understand," Cadet 13 said, his scales flickering with pale yellow spots. "It is not just fear. It is recognition. My body knows what that creature is, even if my mind does not want to believe it." Dr. Nexus made notes on her tablet. "Tell me more about this recognition." Cadet 13 took a deep breath. "When I see the cat, every instinct I have tells me I am in danger. It is like my ancestors are screaming warnings from across millions of years. The creature is a predator, and I am prey." The explanation sounded crazy even to his own ears, but it was the truth. Dr. Nexus listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. "I think I need to research this further," she said. "In the meantime, I want you to avoid situations that cause you stress. That includes staying away from the cat if possible." Word of Cadet 13's psychological evaluation spread quickly through the Academy staff. Dr. Nexus contacted human experts on Earth to learn more about cat behavior and its effects on other species. What she discovered surprised everyone. Dr. Susan Hayes, a human behavioral specialist, explained the situation during a video conference with the Academy's leadership. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but her words were serious. "Cats are apex predators in their ecological niche," she said. "Many alien species have evolved similar predators on their own worlds. It is quite possible that Cadet 13's reaction is genetically programmed." Commander Vex, who was leading the meeting, looked confused. "But it is just a small domestic animal. How can it be dangerous?" Dr. Hayes smiled slightly. "That is exactly the point. Humans have lived with these predators for so long that we forget how dangerous they actually are. On Earth, house cats kill billions of small animals every year. They are incredibly efficient hunters." She pulled up data on her screen. A cat's success rate when hunting is higher than most military units achieve in combat. They have reflexes faster than almost any other animal. Their night vision is 6 times better than human vision. They are, quite literally, perfect killing machines. The Academy staff listened in growing amazement as Dr. Hayes continued. "The remarkable thing is not that Cadet 13 is afraid of Whiskers. The remarkable thing is that humans are not. We have evolved alongside these predators for thousands of years. We have learned to see them as companions rather than threats." Commander Vex asked the obvious question. "What does this mean for the Academy program?" Dr. Hayes looked thoughtful. "It means that bringing cats to a multi-species environment might cause unexpected problems. But it also reveals something important about human psychology. We form alliances with creatures that other species fear." The conversation continued for another hour, but the conclusion was clear. Cadet 13's fear was real and justified. The Academy would need to make accommodations to help him complete his training. Jake Morrison was informed about the situation and was asked to keep Whiskers away from certain areas where Cadet 13 trained. The human was understanding and cooperative, though he seemed amused by the whole situation. "I never thought Whiskers was scary," he said to Dr. Nexus during their meeting. "He is just a normal cat. But I guess I can see how someone who did not grow up with cats might find them intimidating." The story of Cadet 13's transformation became legend throughout the Academy. A 7-foot reptilian warrior, who had been feared by cadets from dozens of species, had been completely changed by a 10-pound orange cat. Other instructors began to study the situation as an example of interspecies psychology. It showed how different evolutionary backgrounds could create completely different responses to the same stimulus. Cadet 13, for his part, learned to manage his fear. He could not overcome it completely, but he found ways to function despite it. He graduated from the academy with good marks, though he specifically requested assignment to sectors with minimal human presence. His behavior had changed permanently. The aggressive troublemaker was gone, replaced by a careful, thoughtful individual who understood that the universe contained dangers he had never imagined. Years later, when other reptilian species joined the academy, Cadet 13's story was used to prepare them for contact with human companion animals. Many of them had similar reactions to cats, confirming Dr. Hayes' theory about genetic programming. The incident also led to new protocols for interspecies contact. The Galactic Council realized that humans brought unique challenges and opportunities. Any species that could form partnerships with perfect predators was clearly more complex than they had initially understood. Jake, Morrison, and Whiskers completed their exchange program successfully. A human went on to serve with distinction in the Galactic Fleet, with his cat companion always at his side. They became symbols of the unusual relationship between humans and the creatures they called pets. Whiskers, for his part, remained completely unaware of the psychological impact he had created. To him, the academy was just another interesting place to explore, with new smells and sounds to investigate. If he noticed that certain cadets avoided him, he did not seem to care. But sometimes, when he sat in the hallways watching the activity, around him, his green eyes would focus on passing reptilian cadets with that same intense stare that had first frightened Cadet 13. And those cadets, warned by their instructors about the small orange predator, would quickly find somewhere else to be. The academy had learned an important lesson about humans and their relationship with danger. While other species conquered their worlds by defeating their predators, humans had done something far more impressive. They had turned their predators into friends. This made them both fascinating and terrifying to the rest of the galaxy. Any species capable of such relationships was clearly not to be underestimated. And in the quiet corners of the academy, a small orange cat continued to remind everyone of this truth, simply by being exactly what millions of years of evolution had designed him to be: the perfect predator.